day it's a blessing to play football.
I'm ready to go.
Jet up, baby. Good to be in green and white.
You don't get no better than this, man. Hey, tune in. We about to put on the show.
Welcome into Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. Olivia Landis and Eric Allen here at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. And EA, oh my goodness, they call it the Windy City, and it is extremely windy and a little bit chilly right now.
And we actually have some music blasting here on Pregame Central, but Sam Darnold,
the tune's going.
Sam Darnold was just walking into the stadium. He's out here getting used to the conditions. The good thing for the Jets, Olivia, when you look at this ball game, is they played in inclement weather last week. In fact, Andre Roberts told me on Inside the Jets that Sunday's conditions against the Vikings were the worst he's ever played in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So the Jets are quite used to the wind, but those gusts are going to be powerful today.
Yeah, we have quite the show planned for you. I actually talked to CBS's Tony Romo earlier in the week, and he's going to give us a little bit of info on this Bears and Jets showdown. And we also have special guest NFL Network Brian Baldinger coming on the show later, and we'll see him later in segments 2 and 3. But right now, the Bears are currently 3-3. They're looking to get to 4-3 on the season, coming off of 2 straight losses. And the Jets, as we know, 3-4, just lost to the Vikings last week in that 3-game homestand. EA, the Jets are looking to get back up to 500.
Yeah, this is the midway point of the 2018 season for Sam Darnold, the Jets rookie quarterback, and the rest of the green and white. After dropping that game to the Vikings, they do have an opportunity to get to 4-4. You mentioned the 3-game homestand. Well, the Jets are going to be on the road the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Darnold's not going to deal with too many tough conditions, I don't anticipate, in South Florida against the Dolphins in Week 9. But when you look at the Jets' schedule, there they are, 3-4, have an opportunity to get to that 500 mark. Then we're going to see a lot of AFC East opponents for the Jets coming up. You go to Miami, then you host the Buffalo Bills before the bye, then you have a bye and you come back and you face the New England Patriots. But first things first, and that is the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, the Chicago Bears, 3-3, so they are at 500 on the season. Already had their bye week, looking to get to 3-4 so far on the season. But some more top storylines, some players that are coming and going. As we reported last week, running back Bilal Powell was placed on injured reserve, so we won't be seeing him obviously for the rest of the season. But a player that we really want to look out for in today's matchup is wide receiver Rashard Matthews.
Yeah, we're watching Darnold go through the paces. Rashard Matthews is a guy who was very productive with the Tennessee Titans in 2016 and 2017. He was asked to be traded or released earlier this season, was a street free agent. The Jets picked him up this week when Bilal Powell went on injured reserve. Also, Doug Middleton goes on injured reserve, so the Jets added depth to the safety position by signing Ibrahim Campbell. And then finally, on Saturday, the Jets brought up a third running back to the mix when they promoted D'Angelo Henderson from the practice squad.
So some new faces to look out for in this Jets and Bears game here at Soldier Field. You mentioned a few players that were placed on injured reserve. Let's dive into injuries so far. So Buster Screen, I believe, was out practicing this week, but there are still some other guys that are still probably not going to be playing today.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens, but that's one thing I talked to Marty Lyons on the bus ride over here. You're at the point of the NFL season where everybody is nicked up. Good piece of news for the Jets in this secondary was Buster Screen did clear concussion protocol. He was full on Friday. You would anticipate he'll be back in the lineup. Trumaine Johnson's still dealing with that quad injury, so he's doubtful. There are 3 Jets who are doubtful this ball game, and they include the aforementioned Trumaine Johnson, Spencer Long, the center, who's dealing with this finger and knee ailment right now. The finger has progressively gotten worse, so either Jonathan Harrison or Dakota Dozier will start with for the Jets there. And then we're going to have to see about Marcus May, the safety who missed last week's action with the thumb injury.
Yeah.
Todd Bowles said he's going to give him a test out there on the field today. So maybe he's back in the defensive backfield alongside Jamal Adams.
So a lot of injuries still for the Jets. Like you said, it's that point in the season where unfortunately a lot of teams will be having injuries. But quickly, before we jump to our first throw, I want to talk about Darnold and his bounce back. You know, coming off a little bit of a rough game against the Vikings. But we're looking forward to seeing, again, this bounce back from Darnold in today's game.
Well, that's what he's been able to show throughout his career so far, 8 games, is that when he's hit a bump in the road, he's been able to respond. He's got a lot of challenges ahead today because the Jets could be without Robbie Anderson, the speedster. He's doubtful for the Jets, dealing with the sprained ankle. So Darnold's going to be working with guys on the outside that he's comfortable with and people like Jermaine Kearse, but they're going to get Rashard Matthews up to speed. Teron Peak was taking reps at the wide receiver position. I mentioned Andre Roberts, what he can do as a return man, but the Jets are going to have to depend on him at receiver as well today. So a lot of moving pieces for Sam Darnold. Completed 80% of his passes 2 weeks ago against the Indianapolis Colts. He had 3 interceptions last week against the Minnesota Vikings. I would anticipate a bounce-back performance. He's a confident guy, 21 years old, a flatliner, and the Jets like what they have in him. But it's a great test today against the Bears defense, who will be licking their chops to face a rookie quarterback.
We'll talk more about Sam Darnold later in the show. And coming up, again, NFL Network's Brian Baldinger will join us in the show. But for right now, let's head over to Coach Todd Bowles. Was interviewed by Otis Livingston on Flight Plan, and he talked about the depth of this team and how you have to have confidence to win.
With all the injuries accumulating recently, how do you and your staff prepare for that next man up mentality?
That's just what it is, next man up. I mean, everybody's going through the same thing about this time of year. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you, but we got guys that made this team that we know can play. We're confident in those guys to go out and do their job.
This is week 8, halfway point of the season. Is this where you thought your team would be?
No, I thought we'd be better than that. Obviously, we don't set low expectations here. We're trying to win every ball game and have championships, and anytime you have a loss, to settle for that and be mediocre, that's not what we're about. Our goals have not changed. We're trying to be the best we can be. We don't like where we are, but we understand where we are, and it's only halfway, and we got to get better.
What's the message to your team this week?
Just get better and understand we're still trying to get to the playoffs. It's not about being 8-8 or 4-4, anything like that. Take it one game at a time, understand the ebbs and tides, and correct it and get on a roll.
You're watching Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. Olivia Landis, Eric Allen, and now we're joined by NFL Network's Brian Baldinger. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Well, good morning to you. Hope we don't blow away here during this segment.
we almost
It is
just
the Windy
about
City,
did.
though.
Listen, we are holding this table down,
We
but
are.
we got Baldy here, impeccably dressed, and we're set to go. Such a pleasure to have you on the show, as always.
Thanks, EA. Appreciate it, man.
Really excited. Let's dive first into matchups to watch. We have Sam Darnold, offensive coordinator, Jeremy Bates, and Nick Fangio, and this Bears defense. You actually just said that was the first time you met Sam Darnold on the field.
Well, I mean, he's a young guy, and I wasn't around the draft process when he was going through everything. So I just went up and said hello to him, and I know Josh McCown and Davis a little bit. So I was asking him about the wind. This is not an easy day to throw the football in.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was windy last week against the
really
Vikings,
was.
but this is gustier. But just watching him throw it in the wind, man, the ball cuts right through it. But he's going to get tested against a really good defense and a scheme under Vic Fangio that can make it difficult, just the way the Vikings made it difficult last week. They can make it difficult on a quarterback.
So let's touch upon that. What will Fangio try to do against a rookie quarterback that he didn't do last week against Tom Brady, because they were dropping Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd a bunch? I don't anticipate them doing that today. And we're going to have to monitor how Mack is used, because he's dealing with that bum wheel right now.
I didn't think he should have played last week,
Yeah.
EA. I mean, he wasn't effective. Vic Fangio, he dropped him into coverage. Like you said, he really wasn't a factor at all rushing the passer at Tom Brady. So we'll see how the tackles are going to get tested early.
Yeah.
And you'll feel his punch. You'll see how strong he is. So then you kind of gauge it from there. But regardless, I mean, Floyd and Akeem Hicks, I mean, they've got a formidable front, and they move them around. And so they can blitz from a lot of different areas, whether it's the safeties, whether it's the inside linebackers right here, and Danny Trevathan or Roquan Smith. I mean, they have a lot of different ways to get to the quarterback.
How do you think the Jets should go about attacking this defense? There's so many moving parts on offense. You could make the argument before the season the Jets' 2 top offensive weapons were Quincy Enunwa and Bilal Powell.
Yeah.
They are no longer in the lineup. I mean, Enunwa is going to get back at some point, but the Jets are dealing with a lot of injuries, especially on the outside. Robbie Anderson's doubtful today. They signed Rashard Matthews, but for a young quarterback, it's definitely challenging this predicament right now.
Well, you know, Isaiah Crowell's got to wear the big boy pads today. Cannon's going to get an opportunity. We all know he is fast. Maybe he can get a little tailwind and go off on some long runs. But, you know, I mean, I think Sam Darnold I think they'll move him a little bit here today, not just leave him back there. I think you'll see him on bootlegs and rollouts and things like that, not allow him just staying right in the pocket.
So Sam Darnold and this offense obviously have a challenge against a very competitive Bears defense today. But another matchup I'd like to talk about is head coach Todd Bowles, defensive coordinator Casey Rogers, and then the Bears head coach Matt Nagy. Yeah, we talked about this earlier in the week, but Matt Nagy's dad actually used to play with Coach Todd Bowles.
How about those connections,
I didn't know that
Baldy?
connection.
How about those connections? They said Todd Bowles at Elizabeth High School.
Yeah.
The defensive line coach was Matt Nagy's dad.
That's a good nugget that I did not know that I'll use on the broadcast today. But that being said, Matt Nagy came in here, and I know Matt a long time. He was with Andy Reid in Philadelphia. He was in the Arena League. But he brings a lot of juice to the offense. He's got a lot of weapons. But, man, you better keep your eyes in the right place. He's going to give you a lot of window dressing, a lot of pre-snap motion, and a variety of plays that you probably haven't seen on tape yet this year.
And they like to go down the field with the football, don't they?
They do. They have a couple of different ways. I mean, his Taylor Gabriel can fly.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of hard to throw the ball in this wind, and it's kind of hard to kind of time that up if the wind is swirling like it is. But Taylor Gabriel can flat out fly. Allen Robinson is a matchup on the outside, a big kid that's got a big vertical jump. So I think they'll take their shots, but they also have all of the quick game, the quick screens and all that. They're very good at running those.
All right, so that's obviously going to be another cool matchup to see, but something else I want to move on to is Mitchell Trubisky. He is one of the leading rushers actually for the Bears, and he's one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. So what are going to be some of the challenges of keeping him in the pocket and limiting the run?
You've been doing your homework, Olivia. You've been doing your homework.
I have.
He's run 31 times, 11 of them for first downs this year. He's their second leading quarterback rusher behind Cam Newton in the league.
Behind Cam by a couple yards.
Cam Newton,
Yeah. So
You've been doing your homework, Baldy.
I did my homework. Almost 8 yards a carry. But, you know, the last week the Patriots didn't account for him.
Yeah.
They didn't spy him. They didn't really account for him. And he hurt him. Scored a touchdown run. Had a big 36-yard run towards the end of the game. You've got all these notes here, EA. You don't have to worry about those.
Notes flying around.
But you do have to account for him. You know, whether it's Avery this week or, you know, they got to put somebody in there. Jamal, somebody's got to keep
spy him?
Well, first of all, whoever you spy him with, he better be faster than Trubisky because it doesn't make any sense to put a guy that's not as fast. So speed is a factor. This guy he's under a 4.6 40 now. So he's not quite Russell Wilson, but he can flat out run. So if you do spy him, you got to pick your spots.
I'm thinking about Darren Lee. If the Jets,
Darren Lee would be a good guy, you know, to try to chase him down right here. But I think you have to worry about that because then you take a guy out of coverage.
Okay.
You know, so you have to kind of do it in a creative way.
So what do you make of Trubisky so far? He's completing nearly 66% of his passes. The Bears over the last 3 weeks have averaged nearly 36 points a game. But if you talk to people in Chicago, a lot of people are saying he's missed a lot of plays down the field.
Well, you know, first of all, the farther you throw the ball down the field, the lower your completion percentage is going to be. I mean, it's just, but I like him. I think he's been tough. He's been durable this year. He extends plays. He's got on the move. He can throw the ball as well as anybody. I think he's an improving player. If I was a Chicago Bear fan, I'd be happy we have him.
All right, so quarterback Mitchell Trubisky, obviously they're going to have to maintain him in the pocket. One more thing I want to talk about before we head to our another throw. Again, we're going to have Tony Romo. I interviewed him earlier in the week talking about this Jets and Bears game. But someone you mentioned was Tariq Cohen and how big of a threat he could be to this Jets defense.
I think he's an X factor. You know, Baldy, the other day, Todd Bowles says, I see a little Kareem Hunt in him. I see a little Darren Sproles in him. They use him as a runner. They use him as a receiver. They use him on special teams.
When he came out at North Carolina A&T last year, I thought he was the next Darren Sproles. Powerful from the waist down, But then when you watch him and the way that Matt Nagy is using him, he reminds you of Tyreek Hill.
Wow.
I mean, they line him up at wide receiver,
You said that too,
all the way
yeah.
out, like at wide receiver. They let him run streak routes, but they do a lot of things with him. In fact, he's got a much bigger rushing average right now than the starting running back Jordan Howard. So you're going to see a lot of different ways of them to get the ball to Cohen.
Okay, and then you were asking us before we came on air, what about Jamal Adams? Where is Jamal?
Where is Jamal
A
Adams?
guy we know you enjoy watching.
Like, I want to watch the Adams era out here because
Amp all the NFL. All you got to do is go there on Monday morning or Monday afternoon, and you're going to see a couple plays by 33.
no doubt. I mean, because they show up every week. He leads the league right now in tackles for loss, the forced fumbles, the impactful hits, the way that he hit Thielen last week. I mean, those hits in the middle of the field, they change the game. And I just love watching the way that he plays the game.
Yeah, something also really cool about Jamal Adams is he seems to have like a veteran presence on the team, even though he's not a veteran. He has that leadership inside the locker room that you can tell guys follow.
Well, first of all, you can hear him from everywhere. Like, he never stops talking,
He's
right?
a loud guy.
So he's loud, but you know what? It really, Olivia, I think, just comes from his love of the game. You can just tell the way that he not just plays the game, but prepares for the game.
Yeah.
When you have that kind of love and talent, and that pedigree from his dad and through the family, like he walks with it every single day. You can't help but want to be around him.
Let me ask you this before we throw to Olivia's interview with Tony Romo. Tony Romo's calling this game today on CBS alongside Jim Nantz. If Marcus May can go with the thumb injury today, how limited would he be?
Well, big plays happen in this game, and usually because of breakdowns in the secondary, either in pass coverage or they miss tackles, and they go a long ways. And so you worry about missed tackles with a thumb like that. Can you wrap up, or are you just going to be leaning with your shoulder and not wrapping up? And so that's the concern right there.
All right, we'll talk more about Marcus May and the Jets coming up. But right now, let's throw to my interview with CBS Tony Romo. He talked about this Jets and Bears matchup and what he was excited to see from today. Here with CBS analyst Tony Romo. Tony, you have talked about Sam Darnold's skill set in the past and have mentioned how you were impressed with some of his talents. Now that he is nearly halfway finished with his first professional season, how would you assess him as a quarterback at this point?
I'd still assess the exact same way. I think you're going to see just a normal development of all quarterbacks. Some guys come in and have better stats or have better seasons in their rookie year, but Sam is going to be outstanding. And I still think that his ceiling is very, very high, and I think you're going to see a monster leap even as the end of the season comes in. But really, when next year starts, that second year for players that I think are going to be at the level that I think he'll be at one day, they make a big, big leap, and the game will get very slow for him, through OTAs and training camp. So I think you should just enjoy it right now, the ups and downs, him learning every play, and then you'll see him take off pretty soon here.
So how can Sam Darnold and the Jets offense find success against this very competitive Bears defense?
Ultimately, you got to block him up. Sam will help him with his ability to get their stuff quickly. He needs protection, and I think more than anything, if they can give him a few seconds in the pocket, that'll be key to the football game. And always for a quarterback, if you can run the ball, everything's easy.
And finally, Tony, Bears quarterback Mitchell Trubisky is known for his mobility. So how can the Jets defense limit his run and keep him in the pocket?
Well, it's the way you rush the quarterback. There's certain play calls you can make. You can rush 5 guys, so there's not many gaps in for a quarterback to run through. But if you're rushing 3 or 4, then those guys have to be very aware, on their pass rush. You don't want to run around the quarterback. That's just opening up a whole side. So there's things like that, technique, different stunts, and you'll probably see some of it tomorrow.
Thanks for your time, Tony.
You got it. Thanks.
You're watching Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. Olivia Landis and Eric Allen here. It was awesome catching up with CBS's Tony Romo. He had a lot of good things to say about quarterback Sam Darnold.
He's really high on Sam Darnold.
He is very high on Sam Darnold. Actually, when I asked him, how do you feel now that you've watched him play almost a whole half of a season for his first professional season, he said, I still feel the exact same way. I have a lot of confidence in this young man. So that's really cool to see. But it is now time to name our Pepsi fan of the game. And this week, our Pepsi fan of the game goes to none other than little Peyton. Congratulations to Peyton. You are a Pepsi fan of the game. Be sure to download the Jets official app app, the New York Jets official app. We'll be highlighting different fans each week. And be sure to watch this show, Pregame Central, presented by Pepsi, before every Jets home and away game for your chance to be our next Pepsi fan of the game. That was cute.
Many blessings to precious little Peyton and her parents. Jets fans, they are old and very young.
You got to start them young, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want them to stray away. All right, again, congratulations to our Pepsi fan of the game, Peyton. Super cute. Now I want to get into some fearless predictions of yours, EA, and what you might have going on this Jets and Bears game.
Okay, so on the defensive side of the ball, let's go to 33. Brian Baldinger was on
His
site
favorite
talking
guy.
about how much he likes Jamal Adams. I think he'll have double-digit tackles and let's say 3 stops for a loss. I think he'll be all over the field. He set the tone for this team after the loss against the Minnesota Vikings, saying, hey, listen, there is no rebuilding. There is no next year. It's all about now, and we still think we can be a special team. Jamal Adams will be all over the place today. I anticipate 33 to have a big game. And let's go over to the offensive side of the ball. How about rookie tight end Chris Herndon? He's got touchdown catches in consecutive games as the wind really picks up out here.
It is almost blowing us away out.
I think Sam Darnold, despite growing up in Southern California, he looked awfully comfortable out there this morning. He'll hook up with Chris Herndon for a 3rd consecutive week for a touchdown. You got that, fantasy owners?
All right, there are your fearless predictions. He's talking Chris Herndon and Jamal Adams. Be sure to look out for those 2 players. Jets and Bears, they kick off at 12 p.m. Central Time, but 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's coming up quick. Right before we leave, we're going to toss it to Jamal Adams, Mike, and you can actually turn on CBS right now. Flight Plan is airing here pretty soon, and you'll get more of that. We're going to give you a quick tease.
Yeah,
that's
Jets,
it for us.
Jets Flight Plan, 11:30 a.m. Plenty there. Todd Bowles will break down this entire matchup with with Otis Livingston, excuse me. Chad Pennington's going to look at Sam Darnold in depth. I'll put Bart Scott in the red zone. And then you got to watch this segment. 33, mic'd up. The guy never shuts up, and he's all over the place. Jamal Adams.
All right, that's it for us here at Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. Let's now toss it to Jamal Adams.
Cousins off his back foot, finds Diggs on a crossing route. Roberts gets him down.
Damn! I put them pads on you. Nah, stop that. You don't even do it. No, you didn't. Stop that, Diggs. You don't believe that. Come on, Diggs. Come on, Diggs. I live for these moments right here, Diggs.
Shotgun for Cousins. He looks right on a slant right. Caught by Diggs. The Jets think that he trapped the ball.
No, he dropped it. No, hell no. Hell no. He dropped it. You know you dropped it. Whatever.
Latavius Murray takes the handoff, runs right, hit by Jamal Adams behind the line.
Hey, you better block me. Hey, that's your uncle. I don't win it. Don't miss it.
Bailey from 42 yards out. The kick on the way. Hooking to the left, and it is no good. He missed.